Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today we're going back to our roots with a direct question sent in by a subscriber. I came out to my stepdad as gay. He asked, "Are you sure? Have you ever been with a girl? How do you know you're gay?" What do I say? First, I want to preface this answer with saying to you the thing that should have been the first response from a parental figure in your life, which is great job knowing who you are, claiming that, and sharing it with people in your life. That's awesome. I'm sorry that was not the response that you got. It's the response you deserved. And I'm going to answer your question specifically with a couple of different options that you could respond with. The options that you have available to you are essentially vast. If you were my client and you were sitting in front of me at my practice or we were doing telehealth and you said, "What do I say in response?" my immediate response would be, "What do you want to say?" And we would then talk through that and sort of pull the primary pieces of information that you need to share with this person and then cultivate a response that feels right for you. I'm going to give some suggestions. They're pretty generic in nature. They could work for almost anybody watching this video who has a similar situation and maybe can even work even if you're not talking about a parent. Response number one, you can say,
"How did you know you were straight before you were with a girl?"
If we were scaling this response, I would scale it as direct, simple, also potentially confrontational. It is appropriate for you to point out their heteronormativity. It is appropriate for you to call attention to this issue and educate them. Because the assumption that you don't know who you are because you haven't experienced A, B, or C does not hold water when you flip it around. And so if you flip it around on them and their answer is, "No, I've just always known," but they're not willing to accept you always knowing, that does expose what they think of people in the queer community, or at least a family member in that same community. The person you're talking to very well might not like having a mirror held up in their face. And if they don't, they are likely to get defensive. If they are defensive, they are going to blame it on you. Do you want to carry that potential response with you into your understanding of this moment of owning who you are to someone who's been important in your life thus far? That's a question only you can answer, but the answer is something you have to process before you decide to move forward with this response. The world would have a lot less misunderstanding and judgment if we could just get all cis-het people to understand that the measure that they measure queer people with has to match the measure they measure heterosexual people with. So if you tell me that you have always known your whole life that you liked people of the opposite sex, I don't know why you would assume that I then made a choice the other way. I mean, has anyone looked around recently? Do you think anyone's actually choosing this life right now? This response can be relationship damaging, potentially, if they push back pretty hard and just sort of expose their heterosexism to you. The question then becomes, do you care? Because in reality, they have to lay all the cards out on the table if they say that, right? And their gut response might not be their ultimate down the road response. And if their down the road response changes, you have every right to revisit that conversation or revisit that relationship, but you are under no obligation to do so. But this could potentially draw a line in the sand in your relationship with this person based on how they respond to you holding that mirror up to them. Again, do you care? You might care, but ultimately, do you plan to continue a relationship with this person if they expose their heterosexism to you and you are not seeing any possibility, or they're not allowing for any possibility for that to change in the future? Option number two.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I like this response too. It is simple. It shuts down any conversation. They're likely to still try to follow up with questions, and you can give just as simple of an answer. You do not have to justify to people how you know who you are. If you wouldn't do it for a straight person, you don't do it for a queer person. That's a pretty easy metric. But you might be surprised at the number of times I have conversations, even with people within the LGBTQIA+ community, about when is age appropriate to talk to kids about queer issues and queer relationships. And say you've got two dads and a kid, and the dads are wondering how soon is too soon to explain that all families out there look different and are built differently. My response is always, at the age that they are able to understand that families and relationships and love all intersect in those ways, they are old enough to understand that there are multiple different ways that it can look, and it still makes it a family. There's never an age appropriateness for straight stuff that is not also age appropriate for queer stuff. When we divide the two, we get in situations like This option will shut down future conversation if you stick with it. If you hold the line, you will shut down having to excuse or define or describe your identity to the person you're talking to. You will do that. However, shutting down that line of questioning may mean they don't come around to understanding that there's nothing wrong or bizarre about this. And because of that, you should probably be careful before you decide to do this. But the question, again, that I would pose to you is, do you care? If you have to justify yourself to someone and then you put up a line and say, definitively, yes, I am. No, I do not need to experience something sexually in order to know I'm a sexual being. Yes, I am a sexual being, and this is how I experience sexual or romantic attraction. If you draw that line and they are not willing to respect that line, that says something about the relationship, right? And it says something about how they feel about you in addition to that relationship. It exposes some stuff, and how you decide to continue is your right to choose, understanding that when you expose people's heteronormative, heterosexist views, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. You can't unring that bell. Whatever metaphor you want to use, you can't undo it. You've seen it. And then what are we going to do with that? Option number 3 is my favorite. Are you ready? It is inappropriate for you to ask me to validate my identity to make you more comfortable with the information I have given you. It is not okay for you to make me question who I know myself to be because you do not know me to be that way. Big yikes. Also, hugely empowering, absolutely wonderful. Let's all say this together to everyone we ever come in contact with that questions our validity. It's direct, it is confrontational, it does hold that mirror up really, really closely, but also there's a reality here that we have not addressed yet, and that is that coming out to people, telling people who you are, should never be about them. It should always be about you. It should be about you wanting them to know who you are and wanting them to get to know you on a deeper level. That's why you tell people who you are. I would encourage you to be very clear with yourself about the realities of your relationship with the person that you're talking to, and also what you sort of expect from it. Listen, folks, when people ask these kinds of questions, when they ask,
"Are you sure?"
or
"How do you know if you've never blah, 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 blah?"
When people ask those questions, they're making the situation about them. They are looking at it through the lens of how they understood you to be, the box, if you will, that they have had you in for so long, and they're not understanding why that box doesn't fit anymore, or why you are, in their perception, rejecting said box. And when you do that, they start to question their understanding of you, which then makes them uncomfortable. There's a group of people out there that would say that we should be giving parents sort of a pass, like let them process their ideas and process their emotions. I would say, no. We do not need to give parents permission to process these big emotions in front of their children. Should a parent process these big emotions? Absolutely. Should a parent have those weird, scary, probably inappropriate questions and have the grace and the space to be able to explore those so that they can come to a deeper level of understanding of themselves and their child or friend or whoever? Absolutely. But the place to do that is never in front of the person who's just shared this incredibly vulnerable information. And I, for one, am absolutely done with giving parents so much credit for doing the bare minimum as a parent, which is accept your child as valid as they present themselves to you. You're a parent, that's your job. You don't get applause for doing that. In general, this video does apply more to people who are coming out sort of like earlier in their sexual and identifying and romantic understanding of themselves. And we do have a lot of content on this channel for those who are doing that later in life and the way that sort of works. If you are somebody who put yourself in the category of a person who came out later in life, I would encourage you to go ahead and check out this video right here, and I will see you all next time. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time, and until then, take care of yourselves and each other.